I played through the entirety of Star Wars Jedi: Fallen Order.
Yes.
So why did the order fall?
Which we... okay, so there's these 3 movies, right?
Okay.
The original ones or the newer
No,
ones?
they made another 3 movies.
Beverly Hills Cop, Beverly Hills Cop 2, and Beverly Hills Cop 3.
I really like that game. I wish I had had a better experience with it.
Sounds like my experience with Pokemon.
Okay. Okay. It is basically what they said it was going to be back in E3. When I walked into that demo at E3 expecting Star Wars Uncharted, and like there's some of that in there, but there is also like a stab at some Dark Souls style combat.
And just structural stuff.
It's got the
like in terms of like
like there's bonfires.
Yeah.
Excuse me. There's respawning enemies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's got kind of that Metroid aspect that they talked about. Like I don't know. Sometimes it feels really reductive to just use other games as shorthand. But it just makes so much sense here. Like, you know what that stuff is.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the story in that thing. Like, it finishes strong. It opens strong and it finishes stronger than it opens. Like,
where in the timeline is this supposed to
It's like
take
5
place?
years after the end of the prequels.
Oh, okay.
So, like, enough time for the Empire to really have fully kind of...
Gotcha.
So
before Rogue One.
Way before that.
Okay. I have no idea how many years are between.
I think it's like 20 years between...
The difference between baby Luke and adult Luke.
Yeah.
And what, slightly taller Luke? Wait.
Yes.
Luke.
Yes. No, see, that was the clone Luke, but that book, those don't count anymore. Anyway, yeah, it's a good game. All right, great choice. Like I mean, well, so a quick look at a review on the site. Like
Why is his name Cal Lightsaber? Why did they write that on that menu? When we sat down to record the quick look, you paused it and I looked at it and said,
"Yes, the ability list."
Why does it just say Cal Lightsaber?
Cal and the name of the highlighted ability.
That might as well be his actual name.
Yeah, more or less.
But does it ever say anything different? Do you ever equip a different weapon and it will say
when you scroll through those abilities, it says whatever ability you've got highlighted.
Cal the Force.
So so it can also say like Cal Force Push.
Oh, fucking great.
Does he ever get into a zone per se?
No.
Thanks, Ben.
That's just a slightly weird menu design thing. That doesn't actually mean anything.
Jeff is still recovering.
Go on.
Okay. I mean, there's a quick look at a review on the site. Like, I'm trying to not just repeat everything I said in those things. If you want like really exhaustive,
extreme technical issues,
it's got
a ton of little technical issues.
Yeah, it's more like it's not any one huge. The stuttering stuff, which seems to be common to all platforms. Like you played a good bit of it on.
Yeah, I started
PC.
it on PC, and at some point was like, this is a bad idea. Like, I shouldn't play this game. I turned it off and said, I am literally going to give this game some time to get finished and run better.
I think that's the thing to do.
I wasn't dying to play it anyway.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not a big Star Wars guy, but I was like, this looks cool. I like what Respawn does.
Yeah.
I want to see this, but not yet.
They wrote a really like entertaining and fairly touching story. A lot of good supporting characters. Like there's a lot of depth to most of them. Like even the villain.
I liked the opening. I liked the opening of that game.
So the first like 20, 30 minutes of that game is like incredibly impressive just from a kind of presentational standpoint.
Yeah.
Like that dream sequence that you see, that kind of...
Like you look at that and go like, oh, right, they made Titanfall. It had that one bit in it that did this sort of thing.
Yeah.
That was similar to this. You go,
kinda,
right,
it's
of
kind of
course.
similar
Yes.
to, it's kind of like similar to that. Yeah, where it's like, wow, they've got some really creative, clever ideas about like... Not just how to tell the story, but how to use their engine to do things that you don't expect.
It's not even their engine. This is...
Well, or not, but
yes,
the tech the game around. What I mean is like, I'm trying to talk around these specific tricks that they use for people.
There's cool visual tricks in that game.
Visual tricks and like kind of shifting environments in ways that you haven't really seen or I haven't.
Or you usually don't see in a lot of games. I mean, Control does plenty of it.
I could describe an example in one sentence. I'm just sort of trying to preserve the surprise for people that haven't seen the stuff. But they do way more with that stuff later on in the game, and like in some really impressive ways that really drive home like some of the themes of the story that they're going for.
I have a question.
Yes.
How is the flipping around with a lightsaber fighting guys force power?
It's pretty good.
Does it make you feel like a Jedi?
I mean, if you're one of the people who thinks that like having to hit a guy 5 or 6 times with a lightsaber to kill them is like, if that's already going to break your immersion, then no.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a sword.
Right.
I've seen people refer to it as like a light wiffle bat, which like I kind of get. I mean, the combat is it's it's got the lock-on of Dark Souls, but you're attacking with the face buttons. There's only one real basic attack button. Like there are heavier moves, but those burn force meters, so it's not like you've got a range of like light and heavy and stuff like that.
Okay, you're not like doing DMC combos or anything.
Not really, no. I mean, you can combo stuff together, but it's much more of a like you build up force by attacking people and then you cash it in to do some of the heavier moves. So it's like there's not that much technique there.
I thought you built up force by getting the right kind of weird blood cells.
I guess there's that. There's that too. But like it's fine in kind of smaller encounters. I feel like it gets pretty klutzy when they really start pouring enemies on. Like there are spots where you're fighting like 5 or 6 melee guys right up in your face, and there are like a handful of people off to the side shooting at you, and it doesn't handle that stuff especially well.
Okay.
It gets a little bit just, I don't know, overwrought.
Watching you fight like a group of stormtroopers was kind of cool. That moment looked a lot like watching, Jedi fight stormtroopers, but then like against larger creatures and stuff, it's a lot more. It's like, oh, this is a video game. This looks like a video game. This looks like Dark Souls or whatever.
Break down their meter, get a few hits in. Break down their meter again, get a few more hits in.
Dodge to the right around their big unblockable attacks and hit them while they're recovering from the animation. Yeah, stuff like that for sure. It's a pretty linear game. Like you get through the intro, you get to the first kind of little tutorial planet, which you can't do nearly everything on. Like the maps all have like a percentage of like, here's how much of this planet you found, here's how many of the secrets. And like it's clear at that point, like, oh, I'm going to come back to this planet. Right. Like I haven't seen nearly everything here. And then they're like, oh, there's 2 planets you can go to right now. You can go to either one you want. Like it's all up to you. And then if you go to the one that doesn't have the objective indicator on it, before you even get off the ship, one of the characters is like, hey, just in case you feel like you're not ready here, you can leave and we can come back later. Like it seems very like softly trying to funnel you toward
like the technically actual, open, but you might not have the ability
find like
to
one
get anything
there.
Yeah.
And on one level, it's kind of cool that they play around with that stuff, because if you go to the planet that's not the next like story destination, you meet 2 major NPCs, like 2 major supporting characters, like almost right off the bat. It's just that you hit a wall like 30 minutes into that planet where it's like, well, I clearly don't have the ability to do this.
Right.
But it's interesting that they let you see that, I think. Because these are characters whose like arcs are not going to come to fruition for 15 or 20 hours of game. So like it's interesting that they at least sort of give you a little bit of flexibility there, even if like I think it's really not worth your time to go off the beaten path too much early on until you've got a bunch of force powers.
Speaking of the map stuff, I really like, just really quick, what they did with the straight up like, this door in your mini map is green. Yeah. That means you can go there. This one is red. That means you cannot go there.
So exhaustively annotated. Like, like it's all color coded on the map exactly.
It's very anti-Souls.
Yeah, totally. Like, I mean, they literally highlight just routes that you haven't taken that you should go check out on the map. Like, it practically leads you by the hand, all that stuff. And like, I was fine with that because I was into the story enough that I just wanted to see it through. But a lot of the stuff that there is off to the side to find is just like I enjoyed going around and getting that stuff. It's just mostly really basic, kind of meaningless collectibles.
Well, it's like here's another lightsaber part, right? That's not even that doesn't even necessarily do a gameplay thing.
No. Like, you can customize like every piece of your lightsaber.
Yeah,
but you can barely see that in gameplay because it's very small.
Can you change the color?
Yes.
Oh.
There's a bunch of different costumes to unlock, but it's all just cosmetic. Like, I enjoyed going back and getting that stuff, but I feel like I've seen a lot of people as the weekend has progressed who seem to appreciate that stuff a lot less.
I think, like as part of a wider variety of content, maybe that makes more sense, like in terms of just like collectible or side content. But to, if like at the end of every side door is just another lightsaber piece or a cosmetic thing, it's like, all right.
I mean, there's a bunch of little like kind of snippets of lore and like some environmental storytelling kind of stuff. You'll get like little voiceover, echoey flashback type stuff about like, oh, here's what happened here before you got here.
Okay.
So like you're getting some context, but like you could basically ignore most of the side collectible stuff and get the bulk of what there is to get out of that game.
Yeah.
But there are a couple spots, like there's one spot in particular that was like, it was just another pathway on the map. Like it didn't look like it. I was like, okay, there's probably one collectible behind that. And I went there and it actually spooled out into this like hour-long sequence of going through this crashed ship with like a bunch of its own unique like puzzles, and it was like kind of a lot of content to hide behind what is this very innocent little like choke point. It was like so like that, and like going to some of the planets out of order and stuff is kind of an interesting way I feel like to play around with like sequence and linearity in that game. There are upgrades. I thought this Is it okay to talk about like the types of lightsabers you get and stuff?
Sure, yeah.
I don't know what constitutes a spoiler at this point on the internet.
Whatever.
Colors of lightsabers, actually.
Okay.
Can I get orange?
Not that I saw. Actually.
What?
Can you get a white one?
Kinda.
Okay.
Kinda.
Wow.
There's one that's cyan that looks a lot like from the original movie.
Okay.
That is kind of borderline just white.
Okay.
There's a little bit of a bluish tinge to it. Anyway, like there are major combat upgrades and like progression upgrades, like, you know, the Scomp Link, the thing that lets your little robot buddy like hack locked doors and stuff.
Scomp.
Scomp. There's a lot of that stuff that you can get at multiple points in the game. Like they will eventually just give it to you as part of finishing the story if you don't find it earlier, but apparently like there are more of those than I realized. Like I found a major lightsaber upgrade that apparently you get later on, right before a boss fight that you have to do. But I just went and found it on a different planet early, and like I think it's kind of cool that they sprinkle stuff like that around. If you've got the initiative to go back and look around, like you can actually be rewarded in some cases.
Yeah, that stuff's cool.
It's neat to see them play around with that stuff. So I really enjoyed the game overall. Like I really couldn't put it down at a certain point. It's just that it's got so many little rough spots around the edges, from the performance to
just
kind of scripting and AI issues. Like it's every
enemies just T-posing,
like
and
every little thing that you say about it sounds nitpicky in a vacuum. It's just that the list keeps going,
right?
You know, and it all just kind of adds up to just sort of
it's like you're guaranteed to see something.
Yeah, and I saw people posting like little clips on Twitter over the weekend or describing on forums like other issues that I didn't even see. You know, like it just seems like it just needed more time.
Yeah.
And I hope they give it to it.
Yeah, they've said that they're working on some performance
they
stuff.
said they've got at least one more patch in the works. I hope more than that is forthcoming, because I think
unless it's a perfect patch and they're done.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? I think it is definitely one of the better Star Wars games in a very long time. Notwithstanding all the stuff that.
How do you think it holds up compared to the like Force
Jedi
Unleashed
Academy?
stuff?
Oh.
Wow,
I forgot.
Force Unleashed
Force
2
Unleashed.
is like not a good game. Like it is incredibly bare bones.
Yeah,
it's bad.
But it's still, I don't remember it as being bad. I remember both of them being like kind of fine.
I mean, I've heard
was 2 the one that started where you started as Darth Vader and stomped around and fucking murdered a bunch of dudes?
Yeah. Was that 2?
Or was that 1? Is that 2?
You know, I think I reviewed 2. I would maybe it's not accurate to say that it's a bad game so much as it's incredibly thin.
Right, but like the physics ass.
Let me put it this way: that game was made here in this city, and like it was not hard to hear that game got made in like a year.
Totally,
like based on like just management shuffles inside LucasArts and stuff like that. Like they made that game very fast.
Right, but like in terms of
so like Force Unleashed 1 was much more elaborate as well.
Exactly.
Like that game got a full production cycle.
Yeah, but I mean in terms of like just conceptually, that game did cool stuff with physics and
this is more like the puzzle. I mean the force powers are much more integrated into either combat or like very scripted progression stuff.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, force push is good for both hurling stormtroopers off of cliffs, which never gets boring. Like that's fun all the way through.
There's some fun,
and for like pushing over bridges that will give you a new path. But that's all stuff that's built into the environment. It's not so much dynamic. Like there are objects everywhere that you can grab.
Half-Life 2 gravity gun with your hand instead of a gravity gun.
There's not a lot of like dynamic, like deforming the environment and just fucking shit up. Like it's much more like scripted to do what they want it to do.
It seemed like there's some cool combat stuff, like watching people do all sorts of dumb shit, like knocking stormtroopers off a ledge and then force pulling them back onto the ledge and then stabbing them on the reel end.
You could get a little ridiculous.
Just like real shit like that seemed like at least fun to look at.
And like it automates enough of that stuff that if you play it well, it definitely does sort of start hitting that like power fantasy, I guess. Because like if you time the block on a blaster bolt, it'll just automatically hit whoever shot it. Like you don't really have to aim or like do much other than just the basic timing.
I feel like when games try to make you aim in that scenario, it just sucks.
Yeah. So they handle that stuff pretty well. Yeah. It's just that sometimes they pour a few more enemies on than I feel like that the combat can really support. But it's got a lot of ideas and it executes on most of them pretty well. I think like if you're looking for a new Star Wars game, like this is the best one in a very long time.
Cool.
It's pretty much just been like mobile games and not much else since Force Unleashed 2. It's been that was almost 10 years ago.
God.
Yeah.
Was that the one where your face would get more messed up if you did mean things?
That sounds right. That sounds like
look like the Emperor if you like did the dark side.
Or did you just turn into Darth Maul at a point?
KOTOR games had that, right?
Yeah.
Didn't KOTOR make you look more evil?
You'd eventually put a helmet on.
That wasn't that KOTOR. That was kind of where they started that, right? And then that bled over into Mass Effect and
Metal Gear and
sure. Yeah, I really hope they devote some more attention to that thing because
just the edges sound like rough to the point where it becomes a lot harder to recommend.
Yeah.
Like that seems like a game that the way you were talking about it was like, this might be like a game of the year contender.
Or on my list, it might be a top 10 game for me.
But then like all the stuff that drags it down.
Yeah. I mean, to be clear, like none of the Uncharted or the Dark Souls or the Metroid is like up to the par of those games necessarily.
Right.
It's just blending them all together in a relatively seamless way is kind of compelling on its own. Even though the combat's not as elegant, the exploration is not as interesting or whatever.
Right.
But with a really good story and just kind of a good mix of stuff, like it moves.
That's cool.
So yeah,
it makes it. I still want to play that game, and I don't even like Star Wars, so I don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna check it out after it gets patched a little more.
I would keep an eye on it for sure.